If you didn't know, Death Battle is one of my favorite shows ever, and probably takes a cake as my favorite web show. I can't think of much else that comes close. And because I'm a fan, I would expectedly want some episodes to happen, rather if it's because it uses some of my favorite characters well, or maybe I just like the idea of the match. Well, that's why I'm here today. I'd like to go over my 20 favorite matches. I know the video is called a top 20, but honestly, most of these could just be swapped around if they really wanted to be. And one last thing, these are all my opinions. I already know going into this list that a lot of the choices on here, or at least some of them, are not very popular. Some might even say unpopular. Who would have guessed it? So, I'm here to just say real quick that you're not going to like every one of these matches. I know that, you know that, we all know that. But that's fine. That's the fun part about having an opinion, you know? Some people have different ones, and that's fine. But without further ado, let's begin this list, because I'm not trying to wait till Christmas. Henry Cooldown vs Satsuki Kiriyumi is a match that I know doesn't vibe with everyone, which makes sense since Satsuki specifically has a lot of opponents which all sound cool, but Henry just vibes with me the most. I've seen a lot of other matches like Leo or Armstrong for Satsuki, and credit where credit is due, they are more interesting and arguably better than Virgil, but something about Henry just clicks with me more than anyone else for Satsuki. Admittedly, it's probably my No More Heroes bias, but I mean, I feel like most people, if given the option between two great matches for a character, they'll probably prefer the character they like more. Connections aren't too strong, just sometimes evil, sometimes good blue twist siblings to the more popular and hot-headed red sibling, which seems to be a running theme in most of Satsuki's matches, but I still like it a lot. In terms of animation, we could get a fight that starts as a Jack vs. Afro-esque sword fight, before Henry just sort of loses it and goes crazy, and we'd need to see Satsuki have to fight off. I stuttered. I need to see Satsuki fight off against a dual-wielding, truly insane Henry. Henry should absolutely win. It's not even a contest, but I think it'd be pretty neat nonetheless, even if it's a massive stomp. Homer Simpson versus Peter Griffin isn't a match I have too much to say on. I just really like the concept of Homer versus Peter, but actually done well. Because in all honesty, the official fight done by the Family Guy crew, all possible by side, isn't that great from a choreography standpoint. This would need to be hand-drawn. I suppose sprites could work as well, but anything else would just feel wrong in so many ways. I'm not sure who wins, though I've heard Homer wins more often than I've heard Peter, so I'd probably be rooting for Peter. I don't have much more to say on this match, I just think it'd be really cool to see. I feel like Jason vs. Michael is a match that falls into most people's most wanted list, and I'm no different. It's not my favorite live action idea, or even my favorite Halloween idea, but it comes in second on both of those categories, which doesn't sound too impressive, but that shouldn't really say much for the match itself, more so my garbage opinions. Moving on, I feel like the reason why Jason vs. Michael is so loved is because of his legacy, as well as the potential in the fight. A very creepy atmosphere can make this episode super memorable. The concept would be very simple, yet so effective if done right, and it could get super gory super quickly, which, while it isn't a must, does make me enjoy the match a little more than I would normally. Jason wins. I don't think that's really a hot take, but I do prefer him, even if only by a little bit, so you know, that's nice. Jetstream Sam vs. Speed of Sound Sonic seems like it could be really fun and a chaotic match if they really wanted to, despite the fact that all they really have is just swords. Sonic is pretty cool, is a pretty cool dude. Like him a lot, but the main reason I want this match is, in all honesty, for Sam. He's my second favorite character from Metal Gear Rising, and an overall character I really love, who not only has really interesting and rich history, but also is just a plain old badass. I'm not sure who wins exactly, but I've heard Sonic should win, which is I'm fine with. as long as they both get cool moments during the fight. The two of them fighting would make for some really cool choreography. Seeing a really brutal sword fight between the two, that just sounds really cool and really fun. The track would also be amazing. One Punch Man has some of the best music I've seen in any anime. And do I even have to mention how phenomenal The Only Thing I Know for Real is, much less the rest of Raikken's OST? I just think this would be a really great match to do, with the possibility of being one of the show's best if done well. Chunky Kong vs. Crunch is a hilarious and features a character I adore versus a character that I like a fair bit. Chunky Kong getting onto Death Battle would make me pop off harder than almost any other episode idea on this list. I don't know the thematics of the fight itself, probably wouldn't be anything phenomenal, but something about this match just gets me super excited every time I think about it. I hope Chunky wins, but I don't know who actually does win. Though, again, like I just said 2 seconds ago, I would be rooting for Chunky because he is my boy. Crunch is cool too, I guess. He's pretty neat. Joker vs. the Green Goblin is one of the only Marvel vs. DC matches that I'm still interested in Death Battle covering. While I like Joker vs. Sweet Tooth a lot, its biggest issue is that it felt more like a Batmobile episode than I really did a Joker episode, at least until the final minute or so. So a rerun of the Joker would be very nice. But I think the Goblin is his best match. It's the one that I care for the most, at least. The match could be fun if done properly. I'd be very interested in seeing if Joker could get over the Goblin Glider. If Joker can get around that, then I'd imagine he wins. If not, then Osborn will probably take it. I'd love for the death to just be Joker using his intelligence to rig the Goblin Glider and kill Norman with an over-the-top and bloody explosion. Assuming he wins, of course. If Joker loses though, Goblin could get the glider through his chest like in Spider-Man 1, but as Joker sits there and dies, he could give a cold and chilling speech that would haunt Norman for the rest of his days. If they did something like that, then that could make for one of the best deaths of the whole show, properly if done right. Kratos vs. Dante is my preferred match for both. I like this more for Kratos than Spawn or Ozra or any of his other matches, and I personally prefer this for Dante over Bayonetta. Not sure if that's a hot take or not, but it's my take. This would be a super fun fight. Both of them throwing their arsenals at one another like no tomorrow, ending the fight off with Kratos in his rage mode. In his rage mode, Kratos fighting a double-triggered Dante, ending off with a super climactic and brutal death. This match might be the most finale-worthy match I'm talking about today. I do really think it deserves to be an episode with a slightly higher budget than most, rather if it's a premiere or a finale. The higher budget would allow them to go crazy on the fight and truly make it super memorable and an amazing animation. The track would also be phenomenal, bringing in a grand climactic feel that would also truly elevate the fight. I want to say Dante wins, which would be great since I much prefer Dante over Kratos. And the funny part is, that isn't even my favorite Devil May Cry match right now. That honor would have to go to Nero vs. Hellboy would make for such a kick-ass animation. Hellboy has plenty of opponents, which, while I was very tempted to put Alucard on here, I personally prefer Nero as an opponent in terms of a death battle. Other versus show can have Alucard, I'm fine with that. And usually Al would be my preferred, but he's already been on Death Battle and had a great episode. Nero though hasn't been on an episode yet, and Devil May Cry as a series hasn't had an episode since season 4 about 5 years ago. So I feel it's long overdue for a new fight. I'd be super interested in the banter between these two. I think that'd make for some memorable interactions. I'd hope the models they use would be the DMC5 and Injustice 2 models. Those are the best models in my opinion. Oh yeah, I think the fight should be 3D. Rather if it's in-house or SFM, I'm not sure, but probably SFM. Not much to say on this that hasn't already been praised about it. It's just a really cool match. Shadow of the Colossus is a series/game I'd love to see get onto Death Battle, but there aren't many matches for the series. There's really only 3 matches I've ever seen for the series. Valis vs. Godzilla is laughably bad to say the least. Malice versus the Attack on Titan. Titan is decent, I suppose. And the third is legitimately great. And the one that made it onto the list. Who would have guessed it? Wander versus Eren is a really fun match idea that I wish was talked about more. I get that the Tokyo Ghoul guy is way more popular and way more thematic, but the difference is that I love Shadow the Colossus, and I don't care about Tokyo Ghoul. So personally, I prefer Eren to fight Wander. I say as if I care about Eren that much. They both got fairly similar abilities. Could make for a fun fight, being able to do many different types of fighting styles. Close quarters, sword duel, kaiju, hell, even an army fight if you really wanted to. I'm just trying to refrain from spoilers, but I really think this would be fun. Eren probably wins, which is kind of sad for me, but Shadow the Colossus getting on Death Battle in general would be amazing enough by itself, so I wouldn't really care that much. Just hear me out for a second. Pennywise versus Flumpty Bumpty. I know how absurd this sounds, but it just sort of clicks with me. They're both Lovecraftian monsters who normally look like innocent things, a clown and an egg, who can shape seemingly all of reality, but limit their powers in order to entertain themselves more while attempting to kill their victims. It's not exactly the most thematic match ever seen, but still has some decent connections. At first, I came up with this match as a joke, but the more I thought about it, the more I actually started to like it. I feel like a reason I'd want Death Battle to cover this because it would require them to get super creative in order to represent the characters and their abilities accurately. I think the atmosphere of the fight could be similar to Dio vs. Alucard, but going even further on the horror end. Imagine the battle starts with Pennywise attempting to spook Flumpty, but Flumpty just is not fazed by him. And that leads to Pennywise using some of his abilities to scare Flumpty, with Flumpty doing a small chuckle before suddenly using some of his own abilities to mess with Pennywise. They go back and forth a little before Flumpty starts going insane and becomes determined to kill Pennywise now, actually using his abilities to the absolute fullest. He sets Pennywise on the back burner, genuinely terrifying Pennywise before he gets back in control, and the grand finale happens. Both of them are at their strongest and the most nightmarish, before whoever wins faking out the opponent with a fake death, then coming when they least expect it. It has so much potential for a truly scary fight. The track as well could be a more lighthearted and goofy track before slowing into a demented and twisted, like the characters in the fight. Will Death Battle do this? Sadly, probably not. Freddy versus Pennywise versus Freddy Krueger is way more popular, and so is Pennywise versus that Spawn clown thing. But I would be amazed if Death Battle did this match, and it is genuinely my preferred for both characters. I know nobody will agree with me on this, but I hope that just this segment alone can spread a little love for the match and get more people talking about it. Death Battle hasn't done many duo fights. The only one I can think of that they've done is Ratchet & Clank versus Jak and Daxter. A lot of people want to see Finn and Jake or Sully and Mike versus Shrek and Donkey. Wait, that didn't come out right. A lot of people want to see Finn and Jake versus Mordecai and Rigby, or Sully and Mike versus Shrek and Donkey. But my personal most wanted duo match is Banjo and Kazooie versus Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong. They both have very similar yet very different abilities that can bounce off each other very well. I'd love seeing the banter, not between the fighters, but rather between Banjo and Kazooie. Them dissing the DK crew the whole time would be super funny, especially if they remained accurate with the cartoony noises they make while they talk. Could make for pretty funny scenes. Donkey and Diddy probably win, even if the punching moon feat isn't actually a moon level feat. It should still be more impressive than anything Banjo and Kazooie have pulled off. Stan Smith versus Archer feels like if Snake versus Sam happened, but with a more comedic tone, which I'd be down to see. American Dad is my personal favorite adult animated comedy, and Archer, while I haven't watched it yet, seems like a very fun show. And the fight itself seems like it'd also be pretty fun as well. I heard Stan wins, which is a massive W. Hand-drawn or sprites could work for this, though Stan's chin and sprite sounds simultaneously amazing and awful. That's why I'd be pretty interested to see which direction they'd go, especially if they did sprites. Though, I think it would be probably sprites because there are a bunch of other hand-drawn episodes I can think of that they'd probably prioritize over this. Though, if I could get this hand-drawn, I probably would. John Wick vs. Agent 47 is my personal favorite live-action idea. Tight choreography with very close quarters, gunner knife fights is probably my favorite type of fights, secondary to only sword duels. Seeing the two of them have a super close gunfight before the fight boils down to a simple knife fight just seems like it would be incredible. They already did a very similar thing with Snake vs. Sam, so it shouldn't be that much harder to recreate something similar in live action. Imagine these two bloodied up and beaten up in the middle of a rainstorm, where they both look at each other dead in the eye, grab a knife, knowing only one of them will be leaving alive. They have a super close fight before they both stab each other right in the gut, before the loser slowly coughs up blood and falls to the ground, their blood spilling all over the floor. The loser holds their hand on the stab wound, coughing up a little blood themselves before they limp away into the stormy night sky. Something along those lines would make for one of the best, most tense, and best deaths of the entire show. I'm not sure who wins, though I'd be rooting for John Wick to win all the way. He's one of my favorite live-action characters, and just from one of my favorite movies personally. Mickey vs. Bugs is probably the most popular match on this list. Donald vs. Daffy is also terrific, but I've always liked Mickey and Bugs more personally. If this happened, it would need to be hand-drawn. However, I wouldn't mind if it took a Saitama vs. Popeye approach, where the animation style changed a couple of times during the fight. I'd want the scene of them just with their toon force against one another. Or maybe have a scene where they both throw the entire arsenals at each other and both casually walk away as the chaos happens. Maybe have a coffee break together or something before getting back to fighting. I've heard Bugs wins, which is perfectly fine, but I'd be rooting for Mickey. I just have a bit more of an emotional attachment to him. I'd be super interested in the track. Having a cartoony yet grand and orchestral track could truly make for one incredible track, and something that'd be one of a kind. I have not much to say on this match despite it being super popular. Out of every character that has ever been on Death Battle, I feel like Spider-Man is the most deserving of a rerun. His last episode was almost a decade ago, and all we've seen from him since then are 3 of the Spidey's counterparts, Miles, Gwen, and Miguel. Peter has a couple of points he could fight. I've heard of a Batman rematch, which I wouldn't hate, I guess. But I'd like for it to be after a couple of seasons so Bruce's 5th episode doesn't feel as boring. And also Doom vs. Chief gets remade. Ladybug is also an option, but I just don't care. The match is very boring. And Blue Beetle is cringe, to say the least. Out of all Spider-Man's possible return options, my personal favorite choice is Donatello from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The connections are simple, geeky teenage nerds that go around, usually in a group, to save New York from criminals throughout the city, and sometimes the world. But I think there's enough connections to help carry the match. The potential of the potential of the fight is pretty great as well. The banter especially. I'd love seeing them complimenting the other's intellect while still dissing them each other playfully. Seems like pretty fun banter. I'm going to assume Spider-Man wins, though Donnie is really cool as well, so I wouldn't mind if he wins as well. Either way, I'd be happy if this episode happened. Nathan Drake is my #1 favorite character in all of fiction. And if you know me, you know I'm not the biggest fan of his actual episode against Lara Croft for many reasons. So I'd love for him to come back and get the justice that he deserves. He doesn't have too many opponents, but Joel from The Last of Us just vibes with me the most. A close quarters gunfight, the two narrowly missing every shot. Have Nate try to keep his distance while using a variety of guns, as Joel tries to close the gap and get the kill with the shiv or something. The climax could be a really cool hand-to-hand fight, where the two toss away their weapons and just keep punching and slugging each other like there's no tomorrow, before one of them emerges victorious. If I recall correctly, Nate wins this, which makes me a very happy camper. Though I wouldn't be upset if he died, assuming he gets the respect he deserves. Caboose vs. Adam is one of the only matches where I think the comedy could carry the entire fight on its own. Imagine if for the more weapons-based versions of DANTE vs. Hibiki, that's essentially what you're getting with this match. Lab Rats is one of my favorite shows ever, Adam specifically being one of my favorite characters. Red vs. Blue is also a show I've been binging recently, and Caboose is probably my favorite character from the show. There could be some interesting trade of abilities, having Caboose throw out some grenades or guns, with Adam responding with his heat vision or super breath. The track would also be great as well. If Blood Gold's Bedlam is anything to go off of, Red vs. Blue makes for some phenomenal death battle tracks, and I'd be intrigued to see them employ Lab Rat's more techno rock style music. This might be debatable as well. Caboose has the 50 megaton feat, but Adam isn't short on feats as well, being able to do stuff like punch an asteroid that was almost the size of him in outer space and destroy it in one punch. I'd be rooting for Adam though, I love him too much. You know, I mentioned earlier that Jetstream Sam was my second favorite character from Metal Gear Rising? Well, my favorite is Senator Armstrong. Thinking about him just gives off such a powerful aura. The way he delivers every single line is just so empowering, even if you don't agree with what's coming out of his mouth. The way he just says it with such determination and force. The saddest part is, he doesn't have any good opponents. Except for one, in my opinion. G from Street Fighter. I used to like Cheetah from Persona 5, but then it came down with a bad case of good opinions. And Valentine is also a choice. But G just fits the best in my opinion. The idea of these two going head to head, throwing their ideals at one another, both disagreeing yet understanding where the other is coming from. This also has the possibility to be one of the most emotional deaths of the entire show. Have whoever loses slowly die as they give one final speech on their own morals and what they fight for, and their dying breath be wishing for the winner to continue the loser's legacy. Having the final shot be the winner staring down at the corpse, tearing up a little as the loser's speech. Something like this could truly make for the death to be phenomenal and super empowering and emotional. Empowering probably isn't the right word, but emotional sure is. Or, you know, you could just go for a big old punch that incinerates them or something, you know, because that always works in death battle. Boros has a bunch of opponents. Most of them just boil down to cool alien dictators. And in all honesty, my preferred from isn't any different. Is Fu vs. Boros thematic? Not really. The connections are just alien dictators that come from Earth to see a specific person. But honestly, it might be my favorite No More Heroes bias. But I find Fu to be the most fun. They both got that high octane feel to them that I think would lead to a super fun fight. Have the match start with Fu being an arrogant piece of glass, thinking he's king crap. Then have Boros getting pumped for a possibly fun match. The two throw blows for a little bit before Boros unrestricts himself and goes stronger. He then starts pounding the crap out of Fu before he gets pissed off and goes into his super form. The final bits of the match are made up of the two of them going in their absolute falls. Boros having the time of his life, whereas Fu is getting more and more beyond pissed. The kill could have the two of them going at full speed at one another, full force, before the winner punches the loser so hard they explode into an explosion of blood. I'm pretty sure Prince Dumbass wins, which I'm very okay with, even if I love both characters. A Boros win would also be nice though, to be honest. And now for my number one. Every match I've talked about so far, while I love them all, they all probably could have gone in whatever spot on the list. Number 2 could have been 11, 20 could have been 7, 13 could have been 9. My opinions change all the time. However, my number 1 spot has been my number 1 for a long while, and is the only spot that I wouldn't change for the world. We started with a controversial No More Heroes versus Kill la Kill match, and now we're ending with one. Travis Touchdown versus RYUKO MATOI is my most wanted death battle. They both had bad connections with their parental figures before visiting them one day and having a mysterious girl come by and kill them right in front of their eyes. So they both went searching for the killer and found places that they would help them find the killers. The UAA for Travis and Pinoji for RYUKO. and now using a type of blade that isn't technically a sword, I guess, they go kick ass and climb ranks and fight the big dog who runs the place. They work for and avenge their parents' killers. They both also started out as complete hassles before slowly turning throughout the course of their journey, learning to be more respectful. They also both have a main color, red color scheme, and come from very mature games and movies. With Travis coming from No More Heroes, a very bloody game with sexual themes, and RYUKO coming from Kill la Kill, an anime with some violence in there with a lot of sexual themes. They also both had rivals in the form of Henry and Satsuki. However, they eventually found out that they were actually siblings and also worked together to take down the big bad of their world. Both of it had it resolved that person that killed their parents was their half-sister, and both at the end of their journey, he's had to use super forms to go into space and defeat an evil millionaire that had an impact on their lives beforehand without them realizing it until shortly before. It's super thematic match, and that's not all to it, because both No More Heroes and Kill la Kill have phenomenal OST, so making a banger track would be possibly one of the best tracks in the entire show, especially if they had lyrics, which I think would be amazing and almost a must-have for this fight. The fight could have so many phenomenal moments. Start the fight with neither of them knowing that none of them really taking the other that seriously. But as the fight goes on and they start to realize that the other person isn't weak, and they let their guards down for a second, the other would cut their heads off and win it all. And they both go a little harder, activating some of their stronger arms like RYUKO's jet legs and Travis's henshin armor for an area bottle, possibly even leading to them into space. The climax of the fight hits as both of them go into the strongest forms, Kisaragi and Henshin full green armor. They both hurl at each other, going to incomprehensible speeds before they have a one-stroke duel. A few seconds pass before the loser gets sliced in half. The winner honors the loser for a moment before going back home, ending the fight. The things they can do with this fight itself is pretty open for interpretation as well. Travis has a couple of beam katanas he can swing in. Each of them gives him different properties, such as one that's slow but hits hard, or a pair of katanas that move lightning fast but at the cost of minimal damage. And he's also got the death glove, which can make him give him several hacks to counter RYUKO with. Meanwhile, RYUKO has a ton of different modes she can go through with Senketsu, as well as some special abilities that she can use to sword slice beam things, or her weaponizing bits of Senketsu temporarily blind their opponent. They both have bikes, so they can have a pretty cool bike fight at some point, and that's not even everything they can do. There's so much potential to a fight like this, it's honestly insane to me. My assumption is that Travis would probably win, since he should have a massively faster than light, out-hacks RYUKO, and be able to hit harder. RYUKO should have regeneration and possibly defense though. Overall, I think this could just be a super fun and a phenomenal fight. Grand and maybe even emotional fight that I have no shame in admitting is my #1 most wanted matchup for Death Battle. And there you have it. Those are my 20 most wanted death battles. I had a lot of fun making this list, and while there were a couple of matches I cut for one reason or another, I feel solid in saying this is an accurate list, at least for the time being right now. And if you made it to the end of what I think will be my first video, at least edited video, then thank you so much for watching to the end. It means a lot to me. Let me know what matches you want to see in the comments below, and I'll be sure to read them. Also, sorry if I stuttered or stammered a lot. I'm still learning how to edit properly, so it's kind of hard for me to cut them out. And there's just kind of a speech problem I tend to have. I'm sorry about that. But anyways, my name is Gunnshow. Like, comment, and subscribe if you don't mind. And I'll see you guys whenever I decide to upload again.